I haven't talked about the Toronto Raptors yet this year, and I am looking forward to doing so in this video. They have really started the year pretty solid, 4-4, a impressive dominant win against the Bucks tonight. Now, yes, the Bucks were on the second half of a back-to-back, but still, Giannis and everybody playing for the Bucks, and they come out here and absolutely wax the Milwaukee Bucks, which is a team that I think is a serious contender in the Eastern Conference, and doing it again, really balanced. Efficient RJ Barrett, efficient Scotty Barnes. Emmanuel Quickley, not as efficient. We'll talk about him. Brandon Ingram looking solid, getting some nice contributions off the bench from Sandro Mamukelashvili, as well as Grady Dick tonight. I have to say, I have my questions about this team still, and I will talk about those in this video, but they seem to have a young core that is kind of rounding into form. And that, Young might be pushing it with a couple of these guys, to be fair. But Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Colin Murray-Boyles looks to me to be a real potential core that you can build around over the next few years. The concern that I have with this team is, number one, some of the draft picks, not sure they're going to work out as well as we would, as I'm sure Raptors fans would have liked. And number two, cap space stuff, while not terrible, isn't ideal either because of a couple contracts that they're paying people that might be a bit of an overpay. So we're going to talk about some of the good and the bad with the Raptors in today's video. The good, they're solid offensively. I think they're 7th in three-point percentage is what I saw earlier so far this year. They are a top half NBA offense to this point. That's great. I think that's better than teams expected, than likely they expected even. In all honesty, RJ Barrett has been absolutely freaking ridiculous this year. Before tonight, shooting 37% from three, okay, great, but 66% from two-point range. That is unbelievable. Brandon Ingram shooting 40% from three nearly on 4 attempts a game, and also 60% from two. Scotty Barnes doing it all and shooting ridiculously well from three himself, 46.9%. Do I have any confidence in that type of three-point shooting lasting for Scotty Barnes? No, but it would be really, really helpful if he's something better than a 27, 34, 28, 30% three-point shooter as he has been his first 4 years in the NBA. If he can be a 35, 36, 37% three-point shooter, the amount that unlocks this Raptors team is massive. Really would help with their spacing. My biggest concern is these two guys right here, Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. I like what they have in Colin Murray-Boyles. He's an interesting player. I think he's got the potential to be a pretty versatile wing who's a good floor spacer and just an interesting skill set guy. I did not mind that draft pick, but I got to be honest. I think you're probably expecting more out of Jacoby Walter. You're probably expecting more out of Grady Dick, even Ochai Agbaji. Some of these guys that have been brought in and, of course, drafted over the past couple of years. I mean, Jacoby Walter was the 19th overall pick. I forget where Grady Dick was drafted, but let's see. He was also a first-round pick, 13th overall. He's a lottery pick. I mean, Ochai Agbaji was not drafted by the Raptors. He was drafted by, I think he was technically traded to the Jazz after being drafted by the Cavs, but he was the 14th overall pick. These are guys that you would like to see come in and be quality role players, and the honest truth is none of them have been. And so if your drafts overall have been kind of hit or miss over the last few years, obviously Scotty Barnes looks like a hit. I loved the addition of Brandon Ingram. They didn't have to give up a ton for him, and I don't think he's making a truly obscene amount of money. RJ Barrett, I'll be honest, I was wrong. I was not at all sold on RJ Barrett as... I did not mean to have these rows selected, but I was not at all sold on RJ Barrett as a future core piece for the Raptors when he was traded to the Raptors as part of the OG Anunoby deal a couple of years ago. I may have been wrong. He's having so far the best year of his career, and it looks like they have a real big three, maybe not an absurd big three, but a legit big three between Scotty, BI, and RJ Barrett that should be able to keep them offensively at a pretty high level. And again, I like the potential of CMB, a really interesting four-man for this team. The question is, where's the real center help going to come from? Obviously, I like what Sandro Mamukelashvili's done so far. 72% from two-point range is incredible. He was good again tonight as well. 15 points, 7 rebounds, doing it pretty efficiently, a plus 28. Maybe that's your center, because Jakob Poeltl to this point in the year has not been. Now, neither of those guys are elite level rim protectors. Sandro's 6'11" for his career. How many blocks is he averaging? Per 36 for his career, if I could find those numbers. I'd be interested to see. For his career, he's averaging 0.8 blocks per 36. Jakob Poeltl so far this year in 23 minutes a game is averaging 0.5 blocks. So you don't have a great, and obviously blocks aren't everything when it comes to rim protection, but neither of those guys are scary rim protectors whatsoever. My concern really is that Jakob Poeltl he's getting paid a lot of money for a guy who looks to be a backup big. Not incredibly efficient inside the arc, although solid. Not a threat at all outside the arc. And I mean, just offensively on the glass in general, what does he do special? He's not a ridiculously great connector big. I'm not 100% sure what he does at a super high level. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched the Raptors a ton over the last couple of years. They haven't been one of the most fascinating teams to me. But you're paying him 19, 27, and then $30 million. And then another $27 million over the next 5 years. That's a lot of money to be paying a 30-year-old big who looks like he might be regressing slightly. I don't love it. Now, that's not a completely just horrific contract either, especially with the way the salary cap is expected to continue to increase. But the same can be said for Immanuel Quickley. After this year, you're paying him $32.5 million for the next 3 years, and of course $32.5 million this year as well. For a guy who so far this year has shot 39-28. That's sketchy. Last year only played 33 games, but shot, to be fair, much better from 3, 37.8%. And I do expect the efficiency to go in the right direction for IQ, but through his career, sub 50% two-point shooter, which is not ideal. He's not a great rim pressure athlete. Playmaking wise, solid, and especially this year, 6.3 assists to 1.9 turnovers is very solid. That's a good ratio as a point guard. You're just going to need some more offensive efficiency from him, though, especially with the amount of money he's making. We know he's a streaky player, but they're going to need a lot more out of Immanuel Quickley because he's the only real point guard, I think, that's playing significant minutes on this roster. I mean, who is that guy who's going to come in and fill that gap? And so the thing for the Raptors is there's a lot of hope because it looks like you have a real core. And maybe IQ can round back into form and be that other guy to contribute to the core. And again, Sandro Mamakala-Svili has been awesome. Can he keep it up? We'll see. Can you get anything out of Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, or Ochai Agbaji? You need one of those guys to step up in a real way. Jamal Shead is a backup point guard. Honestly, I don't mind Jamal Shead. I don't know what his numbers look like so far this year, but I know he's at least going to come out there and compete defensively. So far this year, shooting 44%. That's on twos. He's shooting 50% from three so far this year. Shout out Jamal Shead, man. That's pretty impressive. Undersized, but you know he's going to be competitive. And, I mean, you know what? He shot 32% from three last year. If he can be closer to is higher up in the 40s, that would be huge. I feel like I'm reaching a little bit, though. The problem with this team is they have a initial core, but then you get beyond the top four guys, and again, I'm including CMB in that because I think there's a lot of potential there. And then maybe we trust Quickley, we trust Sandro Mamakala-Svili, and I guess we trust Poeltl. That's 7 guys. You got to figure out a couple more guys. You just have to. At the end of the day, at this level, even in a weekend Eastern Conference, if you want to really compete and be a good playoff team, you need more guys. And they have a little bit of cap space, to be fair, $12 million to the second apron. But do you really want to, at this point, put yourself in tough cap situations? Brandon Ingram's salary goes up a couple million next year, as does Scotty Barnes. RJ Barrett, to be fair, he is an unrestricted free agent, not next year, but the year after, but is making, I would say, a really reasonable amount of money these next couple of years. And it's a weird spot because, again, I just wonder about the long-term flexibility of this team with the amount of money they have invested in an IQ, in a Poeltl. Some of these guys, where are you going to really be able to build around them well enough to put this team in a position to succeed over the next few years? I'm not convinced. That being said, 24, 28, 26, 25, 20 for CMB. There is some youth to this core, and they do have all of their draft picks, with the exception of their 2031 second, which has no protections, but they're going to get their 2026 second as well, because it's protected for selections 31 through 55, and they're not going to be in the last 5 selections of either round, obviously. So they basically have all of their own picks, plus an additional Lakers second over the next few years. They're in a decent spot draft pick-wise. The hope would really be, and this is going to sound bad, I don't know if this year's the year for the Raptors. I like what they're building, but man, they would benefit so much from one more year of mediocrity. If things slip as the season progresses for this team, and it seems as though the year is not going right, that's NFL, not NBA. I do want to look at standings real quickly, because I could see a world, even in a weekend Eastern Conference, where, look, they're the 9 or 10 seed. Around if the Magic figure out a way to get on track and Hawks can tread water without Trey, and obviously Celtics are still decently competitive. If they're the 9, 10, 11 seed, somewhere in that range, come semi-close to the trade deadline, maybe you see if you can offload a Pirtle's contract. Something like that. You may have to even attach something to do that. I don't know. His contract isn't that bad. We'll see what happens with IQ, but maybe you try to get a lottery pick again and hope the lottery luck goes well. You're improving this year. You get a quality pick, and next year you really hit the ground running and hopefully make a couple of additions around the margins that can give this team some more solid veteran role player depth, because they need some real depth. And again, you can't be missing on these picks. They got to hit on their picks, because Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, Jacoby Walter, obviously Ochai not their pick, but they haven't exactly hit it out of the park the last couple of years. You need contributors with these picks, and this year's draft especially looks to be a really, really deep one, even as we get later into the lottery. So if I was the Raptors, it might not hurt to be kind of bad for one more year. That being said, they are clearly much more on track than they have been the last couple of years, and I want to give them real credit for that. I am excited to see how this team develops as the year progresses. They have a real core, and I think I was kind of wrong about RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, some of those guys who I didn't quite trust. BI's been pretty solid for them so far, although not amazing. Defensively, they could be a little better as a whole, but there's potential here. And it looks like they have a little bit of an identity and a little bit of a future and a direction for the first time in a few years, which is a good spot to be if you're a Raptors fan. So with that being said, that's going to do it for the video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.